Hey everyone, Mike here in the BFH garage. Time to get started on the front half of the mid-arm install. As you remember, when I did the back, I was sitting there letting paint dry for a while. So I've already removed parts of the axle. I got my steering linkage all off. I got the drive shaft out. I've already got the pumpkin drained of the differential fluid because I'm going to need to relocate that ARB air locker bulkhead fitting. So what I need to do now is just get the rest of this axle dropped out of here before I can do anything else. So let me get that pulled. We'll be right back. Getting that axle out from underneath the Jeep was the easy part. Now the real work begins. Just like I had to do on the rear end, the front side, I'm going to have to remove all of these stock control arm brackets, get those out of the way, get them cleaned up, make room for the new mid-arm brackets. I also have a ton of work to do on that front axle. The first thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to work on that ARB bulkhead fitting. I need to relocate that so I can access it once the truss is on there. The problem I'm facing though is the truss ties into the upper control arm mount. So I need to cut that control arm mount kind of in half, somewhere in there. That truss will set over it. Then and only then will I be able to see where that bulkhead fitting needs to go. So basically what I'm saying is I need to put my diff cover back on to keep all that grinding dust out of there. Once I get that bulkhead fitting in place, then I could button up that front end and be done with it. And that'll keep all that grinding dust from all the other work I got to do from getting inside and contaminating my gears. So off to work I go. All the other axles we've been doing the mid-arm on have been Rubicon, so they have a Dana 44 front axle. This is a high pinion 30, and the Dana 44s from the Rubicons, they have a spot on the side where the stock locker would go through the housing. You can use that in order to run whatever locker you want. You can switch out to an ARB, you can still get your fitting in there and use a 90 degree and everything's great. On this one here though, mine's already set up here, so I'm thinking to myself, if I want to have it come out from underneath and catch a control arm up here, then I need to put that bulkhead fitting somewhere in here. So I sat there and stared at it for a second, and I thought to myself, it'd be better than that. So as you're looking at the way this truss goes here, it'd have to come out here, kind of swing up, catch a control arm. I opted to drill a 3/4 inch hole right here. It's far enough away from the sides, it's not going to affect that strength. I'm not worried about that. But it's going to allow it to come straight up and out, curve right over, pick up the control arm, go up to the compressor. Now the question you may have is, how do I get in there to service that? Well, I made sure I marked my hole absolutely center. That socket fits right in and over, so I can undo that, but I really don't need that because I also have the a box wrench I could easily put on there. I can get the screwdriver right down in there to get that fitting out of there. The other thing I need to do though to pick this up is I need to put in my orange quick disconnect for my 5mm line. So that's a 1/2 inch line right there. I could put that right through, screw it right in without a problem, have complete access to everything. Nice thing is my line comes right out, gets picked up right there, but I also have access to depress the quick disconnect to release my air line if I need to do that. Well protected, everything's out of the way. I love this. With the bulkhead fitting being easily solvable, now it's time to add gear oil and we'll get this thing buttoned up. This is one of the nice things about having an axle stand right here. You can just dump it right in, no problem. While that's emptying out the rest of the way, I just want to show you this Barnett diff cover and why I like them. This one here is for Dana 30. Obviously, you can see there's no damage up top because that isn't in harm's way. But you do need the clearance for your track bar. On the bottom side, you can see how this thing got beat to crap, and it's still holding up just fine. So these things are awesome. Put the diff oil in. Next up, time to remove brackets and get all this stuff cleaned up, ready for the new brackets. It's time. That does it for welding the truss. Have everything on. When you do this, make sure you take your time. Put one weld here, one weld over there, one weld back over here. You want to spread out that heat, and then you also want to let it cool down in between welds, so that way you're not applying too much heat and warping your axle tubes. When doing the stiffener here, when you do these, should be about 1.5 inch welds, and you kind of want to go similar to a head. Start from the outside, work your way around all the way back down to the middle, and you'll experience the best success with that. The two old control arm mounts that pop up through the truss here, that's a mechanical bond. I mean, it's a fusion bond through welding, but it's a mechanical bond to keep that truss in place. The weld could break there. The truss still won't go 4.5 just because it sticks up through the two mounts stick up through the truss. So take your time, get all this stuff done, double, triple check, and a lot of work. The front axle is a lot, it's time consuming is what it is. So take your time with it, don't warp it. Time to embrace the suck. Telling you what, I hate that grinding with a passion, but we got to do what we got to do to make stuff work. So now it is time to get the front driver side bracket in. Remember, when you're installing, and if you're installing a Savvy, go off the directions of whether you're TJ, early model, late model, LJ, whatever. That's why I'm not throwing measurements in here. Make sure you get your exact measurement of where it needs to be. If you're not using this one, you're using something else, make sure you get that figured out before you burn this stuff in hard, because once you do, try to pull it off the frame afterwards is gonna suck. So this will go up here somewhere. And I will get it tacked in place. I'll double check my measurements and everything before I burn it in the rest of the way. This is one of those things where you can't sit there and talk and film and do all at the same time. You're gonna mess something up. So I need to get that put in, tacked in, burned in, and then we'll move to the other side. Finally done with all the welding. That's a lot of work, I tell you what. You have to get up on the back side up in there, get all that caught up in there. Over here, you have the sides there, but you got a body mount up top, so you have to kind of cut notches. Ton of work, but man, is it worth it. So now, anyway, now that that is all done, it is time, now that this paint's finished drying, to get this thing installed over there. This is mostly the same process as the rear. I just don't have to deal with those brake lines. That drove me nuts when I did that, but those are out of the way. All I need to do now is get this thing squared and centered. Same rules apply. I dropped a laser from my center skid mount bolt holes. That's lined up perfectly. I dropped plumb bob both driver and passenger side. I have a mark down here on the ground. Now I'm going to measure from this point where the center line is up to here. Do the same thing the other side. That's going to tell me whether it's square or not. Once that's square, then I can decide whether I need to move it forward or backwards. But I'm not going to be able to do that until I get my steering linkage in, make sure everything plays nicely together. The other thing I'm going to have to do here is also account for my pinion angle, so I'm going to have to get the drive shaft in and account for that as well. But in the meantime, let's get this squared and centered. With the axles squared and centered, we have all of our steering installed. Links are where they need to be. Everything's kind of where it needs to be. Now what we need to do is we need to take this up to full bump and look for any interference issues. And what that's going to tell me is, do I need to move the axle back, or can I actually move the axle forward a little bit and get everything out of it that I can? Looking at it from here, my guess is we're going to have to move the axle back, but come on over, I'll let you be the judge. So right now we're sitting at ride height, and at ride height, if you look in there, you can see how, we can anticipate some interference issues there. So what I need to do is take this up to full bump and see if we hit anything. Now, in anticipation of this happening, on the track bar, Curry puts a gusset in there. You can see I already took a notch out because that's usually the name of this game when you're dealing with this. But we're going to find out here in just a second. Let's run it up. So what happens is we take this up to full stuff. Oh, not hit anything yet. Oh, disregard. I can feel it coming off the lift there. And sure as heck, I can see, I don't know if you guys can see from where you're at or not, but my interference point right now is right here on the track bar where that gusset is. I need to grind that out of there. I thought I was going to have enough room left over for that. But looking at everything else, to be honest with you, I am too far forward. So regardless, I still have, 3.5, almost 4 inches of shock stem showing. I can see that this is going to be a problem. So what I need to do is I need to move the axle rearward, which means I need to shorten the two lowers, and then I'll have to adjust the pinion angle after that. So that's not it. What is keeping this from going up? Ah, okay. All right, I found the culprit. So my engine skid brace that goes over is all the way pushed up into the oil pan, and the upper control arm is what is hitting it right now, and that's what's raising this up. So I need to lower the axle, I need to remove that arm, and that is something I'm gonna have to rebuild after the fact to find a fix for that. And that's to be expected with this. I just completely forgot about it until I see it happen in person, so pretty interesting. That's already going up higher than what it did before, so that's good. Oh, I think I just hit a point of interference. Take a look. Oh yeah. So as you come in and take a look here, you can clearly see that that's going to be a point of interference there, so we need to move the axle back. You can see right here, that's my next point of interference. So I need to take the axle back down. I need to get a grinder in there, take off about 1/4 inch off of that corner so that way that track bar barrel can still move. The other option is I need to double check my center, because if I'm off center a little bit, that's going to pull the axle that way. So I'm gonna give everything a good look over and get it adjusted if needed. You can see here, I got pretty aggressive with it. I had to get in there with that Cubitron disc I had. I ground that all the way down just to make sure I have the clearance there. The other thing you may notice is that my spring perch originally went out here and then 90 down that way. I went ahead and cut off that corner. I remember when we did Matt's, we had the same problem. He had some interference issues there. So I decided to just get ahead of the curve, get that off of there right now to eliminate any issues there. Not worried about strength. That's 3/16 still. It's not a stock spring perch. It's aftermarket. So strength shouldn't be an issue, but if I have plenty of room, I may box in right here. I don't know. We'll see when I get it back up in the air. Finally got everything dialed in. And I mean, moving the axle back, getting the pinion angle changed, having to do this. You got to cycle through this several times in order to dial that in perfectly. There's a lot of things you can do. Like I said, trimming up this a little bit can help. You know, the Curry track bar has a gusset there. Sometimes you have to trim that back. There's just a ton of stuff you got to do. Make sure your axle is centered. I was off between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch that way. I'm sorry, this way. And when I readjusted, it pulled that Johnny joint barrel up here away from making contact right here. So that helped out tremendously there. Yeah, all we have to do now is tighten down all the jam nuts. I'm gonna throw Loctite on the Johnny joint bolt nuts, and then we gotta put in springs, brakes, put the wheels back on, and we'll be done with the front. Well, I'll be damned if we didn't get it done. Lot of small work. I mean, running simple things, ARB line, getting the brake lines all hooked up, sway bar, all this stuff takes up and eats a ton of time. Getting that axle squared and centered to fit right takes a ton of time. Getting your control arms adjusted, getting the jam nuts all tightened up takes a ton of time. You got to do everything right in order to get it done right. If not, you're going to experience issues on the trail. So as you come back here to the rear side now, that's all done. I have my ARB line run there. I have my brake line connected and ready to go. And that is connected up here now. Everything else is done. Now the front side's completely done. All I have to do now is adjust where my skid plate's gonna go. because this control arm right here, when it goes up, it can tuck up so high that it will get in the way of this. So I'm gonna have to relocate that skid control, or not skid control, the skid plate bracket, so I can get that thing set up there. So you can see how that goes up. When this goes to full bump right here, it'll make contact up there at the arm. So a little bit of work to do there. I still have to put my exhaust back in. I'm gonna wait to do that because I'm gonna rebuild the entire exhaust to go all the way out the back. So that's for another day. But for now, we're officially done with the front. Time to move on to a different part.